Rev up your engines! If you're mad about the high price of car repairs these days, then stay tuned, because I'm going to show you what you can do to lower the cost. As modern cars get more and more complex, their repairs get more and more expensive. Many mechanic shops are now charging $200 an hour labor rate for working on your car, some even more. And sure, you want your car fixed, right? You don't want junky parts or people that don't know what they're doing working on your car. But on the other hand, you don't want to waste money needlessly. Now, let's say you're like most people these days and you're not going to fix your own car. How do you choose where to go so you don't get ripped off with really high prices? Well, numero uno, my advice is to stay away from the dealerships because of their high overhead. You want to go to a lower overhead place. Take the average dealership today. It might have $2, $3, $4 million a year overhead. That means they got to get that $2, $3, $4 million bucks out of their customers before they even make a profit. So guess what? You're going to have sky-high repair bills. That's just how it goes. In this case, bigger is not necessarily better. They have an awful lot of overhead they have to pay for, and you're going to pay for it as a customer. Hey, they're not in business to lose money. They're in business to make money. Realize most dealerships make their profit from fixing cars these days. Everybody knows how to try to cut down the price of buying a car there. They make a large lion's share of their profit working on cars and maintaining them. They'll sell you things you probably don't even need, like cleaning your fuel injection system. Neither this Lexus, that's a 2002, has ever had its fuel injectors cleaned, and they still work the same. The gasolines, at least in the United States, there's various laws for them. They have to contain certain additives so that they don't pollute, so that they burn clean. And as long as you're buying gas from a quality gas station, you don't need to put cleaners in your gas or have your fuel injectors cleaned. Now, I know it's very hard to find a good mechanic these days. When it comes down to the bare bones of repairing cars, you have to have an honest mechanic you trust, because dishonest people can sell you things you don't even know what they're talking about, right? When you're looking for a mechanic, talk to him. He should be able to explain anything to you. It's a machine. If he knows how it works, he can explain how it works. Maybe he'll get out a fancy scan tool, plug it in and say, look, here's the waveform. This is what your fuel injector is supposed to look like when it's firing. This is a good picture of it. Now we'll hook it up to your car, look at yours, see how the fixture's different, because that means your fuel injector's breaking down, and they can explain it to you. They just don't say, well, we got to replace the valve. Somebody like that, run away. Find somebody who's honest and is going to explain things to you. And when you're looking, don't just go by price. One guy says, I charge $200 an hour. Another guy says, I charge $150 an hour. The charging per hour is kind of absurd, because you have no idea how much time the guy's actually spending fixing your car. What you want to know is what that job costs to do. I never charge my customers by the hour. I just charge them for the job. I'd say a brake job is this, power steering costs this. I give them the whole price. I don't go out and say, well, I charge $200 an hour. I don't know how long it's going to take. You got to get an honest mechanic. And if he's honest, hey, that's what counts. Not that, oh, this guy says he's going to charge less. Because unfortunately, many of the guys who say they charge less, that's just the sucker to come on to get you in. And they'll tell you, oh, we can do your brake job for 79 bucks, right? Then you get in there, well, it's worse than we thought. We got to replace the calipers, the master cylinders. Now it's going to be $600. When I lived in Houston, they'd say, oh, Scotty, our friends told us about you. I'm looking for a mechanic. And the first thing I said, why are you looking for a mechanic? Do you have a mechanic down? He said, yeah. I said, well, why don't you like him? Well, he charges too much. I said, does he fix your cars right? Do you have any problems? No, he always fixes right. He just charges too much. I said, no. I said, stay with the guy. I said, you cannot change just because you think he's charging too much. I even had people sometimes tell me I was charging too much, and I always sold the parts at cost and just made money on the labor. And they would even complain about that. So some people, they complain too much. You don't want to be one of those people. You want to have an honest relationship going so everybody's happy. Because truthfully, it is pretty hard to find a good, honest mechanic. And if you find one, don't go pricing all over the place to save nickels when you're going to lose thousands of dollars in the long run. I remember another customer I had in Houston, and before he met me at another mechanic, he said, yeah, he said, you know, it used to be back in the day that my mechanic Joe, every time I went in, it was a C note to fix the car, meaning that it was $100 to fix the car. But now, he said, it's $1,000 every time I go to get my car fixed. People have high overheads, they want to pay for it, which is another reason I advise you, get a scan tool, even if you're not going to fix your own car. And if you own a Toyota or a Lexus, this is a king bowling. You want to get something that does a reasonable amount of stuff, doesn't cost much, okay? This is a king bowling. It's called the solo scan because it's solo. And this particular one is for Toyota. Since I'm messing with Toyotas and Lexus here, it works on both of them. It does a tremendous amount of stuff on Toyotas and Lexuses. It's one of these little dongle jobs. Paid $75 for it. You use it on your smartphone, and it does phenomenal stuff on Toyotas and Lexuses. Hey, $75 these days isn't much money. You'll be able to record stuff on your phone. Even if you're not going to fix your car, you can look up stuff. You can see what could be going wrong. When you take your car to a mechanic, and you can also either save it on your phone or make a printout. And when you go into the mechanic, you can say, okay, I scanned it, here's the things that I've seen. And even if you don't understand it all that well, hey, just Google it. I'll probably have a video about it, or somebody else will. And you can see that they're going to go, uh-oh, this guy's a complete idiot. We can't pull the wool over his eye and sell him all kinds of stuff he doesn't need. But conversely, don't lie to a mechanic and pretend you know more than you actually do. An old customer of mine, Bob, did that when I moved to Houston. When I met him, he said, I don't have the time to fix my car. I'm too busy, so I'll let you fix my car, right? Well, I worked on the guy's car for years. And I said, Bob, years later, why did you lie to me, tell me you worked on cars? You didn't know anything about cars, right? And he said, well, that way I thought you wouldn't rip me off. And I said, Bob, just talking to you, I could tell you didn't know anything about cars. And any mechanic who knows his salt is going to know whether you really know what you're talking about or not. Now, an honest one like me, granted, I'm going to explain it to anybody. A lady just brought over a Lexus. She was buying used, and I said it was a great deal. And she said, well, I followed all your videos. I knew nothing about cars, but it saved me a lot of time looking at bad ones, not even bringing them over here. Then I brought you this good one, and it was a phenomenal car. And if you're cheap like me and you only buy used cars, hey, these things are going to save you a small fortune. People can pull the lights out of a car, the warning lights, the check engine light, all kinds of warning lights, so you don't see them. Doesn't mean they're not still stored in the computer. And these babies, you plug them in, look at your cell phone, look at the data, you'll see there's problems, and you'll know not to buy the car. Hey, it's like a mechanic in a box, right? And if you're disgusted at the high price of gasoline, hey, don't waste your money buying unnecessary gasoline. Most cars run perfectly fine on normal unleaded gas. You don't need the fancy stuff. I mean, the Matrix is made for regular gasoline anyway. Nothing but regular gas in my wife's Lexus, and it still runs perfectly fine, even though it is 23 years old. That's the one advantage of modern technology in cars. The computer systems can equilibrate the systems to run on any type of gasoline. Let's say you've got one of those flex fuel cars. It can run on anything from 0% ethanol to 85% ethanol and everything in between. It measures how much ethanol is in the gas, makes the car run right, and that's an extreme example. Most cars that are just normal cars will run perfectly fine on regular gas. You don't need to spend $1 or more per gallon because it isn't going to make it run any better. Now, sure, if you got one of those goofy 4-cylinder turbo Mustangs, Eco Boost, right? Puts out 345, whatever horsepower. If you use regular gas, then it loses like 40 horsepower or something, right? You shouldn't be racing them that high anyways, because those Eco Boost 4-cylinder engines blow up too early to begin with. But most cars, hey, you're not even notice the difference running regular gas in them, and you're wasting all that money. But on the flip side of the coin, don't cheap out with oil, right? I only use full synthetic oil and full synthetic oil filters because the oil filters, cheap ones, the $1.99 ones, they're only good for 3,000 miles. Fancy ones are good for about 10,000. But that said, I use full synthetic oil, full synthetic filters, but I change them every 5,000 miles. And you might say, Scotty, they tell us to change it every 10 or 12,000 miles. Yeah, and then when your engine starts burning oil or brakes, and you got to spend $5,000, $10,000 doing the engine over or get rid of the car and get another one, you'll have wished you changed it every 5. As they say, you don't want to be penny foolish. You don't want to save a little bit of money changing it every 10 instead of 5, but then the big pound, the engine, goes out on you because it should have been changed more often and the dirt wore out the engine. Dirt is friction. Friction wears out engines. You don't want to wear your engine out. You never want to have unnecessary repairs, like engines or transmissions. You want to maintain those rigorously, but it doesn't have to be done all that often. There are a lot of aftermarket parts out there that you can buy to fix your car and save a bunch of money. Some are good, some are completely hard. Batteries wear out over time. You got to buy a battery. Most of these supposedly discount auto parts stores are selling them. They want $200 to $300 for a battery. My Matrix battery went out. It was an AutoZone battery that I paid like $89 for, but now it was over $200 4 years later. So I went to Rural King, got this battery for $50. It's the same cold cranking, 550 cold cranking amp rating, and it came with a 3-year warranty. This thing now costs 1/4, 25% of what the AutoZone battery costs. It's got a 3-year warranty. Who cares, right? The other one costs 4 times as much. If this one lasts even half as long, you're still making out okay. And from my experience with these things, my grandson's been buying them for years, they generally last pretty much the same as those AutoZone batteries do. Not the battery I watch Lexus is made in Korea, and this Rural King battery was made in the United States. Now, let's say your radiator springs a leak or it's all corroded inside and you need to replace it. Well, I replaced one in a Toyota years ago, DYELIH, or there might be more, it's a Chinese company, but it's worked perfectly fine. I've had no problems with it. Now, I looked up my all data system. It's $459 for an original Toyota radiator. $459. I bought this one online. It was $129 and it included the new fan motor and assembly. Let me tell you something, the Toyota radiator is a naked radiator. You'd spend a ton more for the motor and fan. You get all that and they work perfectly fine. I've changed hundreds of these out with Chinese units and had no problems. Now, your life is riding on your tires, on the air inside, the traction, the acceleration, the braking. You don't want crappy tires, but you don't want to get ripped off either. Realize when you go to the tire store, they try to sell you the most expensive tires, they make more money on it. My advice is never buy the cheapest ones they have. The absolute cheapest, they're the lowest quality, they're usually Chinese made junk. Don't buy those unless you're just putting them on the car and you're selling it. But if you're planning on keeping your car, my advice is find a good mid-range tires. Now, when I say you buy a tire for how you drive, it's exactly what I mean. Take speed ratings. In the United States, they're rated from A to Z, Z being the real fast racing ones. For people who race around, go high speeds. Most people don't need a tire that's that high rated, right? And when it comes to the tread pattern, my advice is get yourself a nice all-season tire. Because then in most areas, you don't have to waste your money buying snow tires too. All-season tires are just that. I know people in Rhode Island, people in Buffalo, New York, they don't put snow tires on anymore. They use all-season tires. And the all-season tires drive quite fine. It's Goodyear all-season tires. Hey, we drove through snowstorms, gone from here to Niagara Falls to Rhode Island, and then Rhode Island to Niagara Falls to here. When we went by Lake Erie, there was giant squall, typical for Buffalo and parts of Pennsylvania on Lake Erie. We had no problems with traction whatsoever. And it's only a front-wheel drive car. It's not even all-wheel drive. They work perfectly fine. So yes, car repairs are getting more expensive. With the complexity of modern cars, things like Toyota's V6 that has both port fuel injectors and GDI fuel injectors, electronic steering. I mean, yeah, they're really complicated vehicles, and fixing them can get really expensive. That's why you want to maintain them so they don't break, and of course, buy the right vehicle in the first place. It doesn't matter how you maintain something like a Fiat or a Jeep Renegade, it's going to fall apart in front of your eyes, no matter what you do. One of the biggest things about saving money on car repairs is buying the right vehicle that doesn't need all that much maintenance and rarely needs repairs. Since the average new car in the United States goes for like $45,900, that's a lot of money. Do you want to buy a new one every 5 years? I don't think so. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.